This is episode 100 of Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews with interesting people. Joining me via Skype today is Kate Mulligan. Hi, Kate Mulligan.
Hi, Trish.
I am so excited. I've wanted you on this podcast for months and months.
And I feel honored. I can't imagine why, but I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I wanted to make the 100th episode a big deal. I really did, because it's like I just was talking to you. This podcast I love so much, and 100 means that I've been doing it now for a long time. And I thought, who would be the best person to share this? And it was you. Done. Period.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much. I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
And you're a celebrity.
I don't know about that.
You are. So I have to tell a quick story about how I actually met you. Shocker, it was at a winery. This is how all of these stories start off. We were at a local winery, Irvine and Roberts, and there was this beautiful woman that walks by with blonde hair, and I go, gosh, she looks familiar. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. And then I walk in the wine, and then it clicks for me. Oh, she was Velma in Hairspray. That's where I've seen her. So I walk inside, and I don't ever do this, but I totally fangirled you. And I was like, OMG, you are fantastic. And do you remember what you said to me?
What did I say?
You go, you're my news lady.
Yes. Well, our whole table of people went bananas because they all recognized you. And, you're in our home all the time. So it's so interesting to, newscasters are real people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, there she actually is. So we all got, if you remember, we were all fangirling on you.
I
we went
do
outside
remember.
and posted
Yes.
pictures. Dan Parker in particular was
Yes.
just verklempt. He just couldn't get over that you were a walking, talking person. It was fantastic. I've never seen him so flustered. And I'll tell you something, Dan Parker, it's really funny because sometimes he's an actor at the Oregon Shakespeare
Mm-hmm.
Festival, for those who are he knows every famous person on the planet. I mean, his stories are peppered with people he's worked, dear friends, incredibly. I mean, like Gwyneth Paltrow, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Wow.
But it was you who walked in and blew his mind out of the water.
Wow. It was a pee your
true.
pants moment for me. It really was.
And for him as well. And we all really enjoyed watching that.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Kate Mulligan, for those who don't know you, who have been living under a rock, you are an actor with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah.
We will talk a lot about that,
Yeah.
But I first want to get to, where are you from originally?
And listen, please feel free to stop me and interrupt because I'm an Irish girl. I love to tell stories and I could talk for an hour just by myself and just be thoroughly.
Same.
Like, oh, right, there's somebody I'm supposed to be having a conversation with. So please feel free just to say, Kate, shut up for a second. Let me speak. I was born in Maryland and my dad was a salesman but he used to write, he was a joke writer on the side, like a little side hustle for a political satirist named Mark Russell, who used to have live shows at the Shoreham Hotel. Mark then went on, he still performs, but he was on Real People. He has a lot of PBS specials. Mm-hmm. He sits at a piano draped in a flag and he sings all these wonderful songs, Mark Russell. So my dad became one of his joke writers, actually his only joke writer. After about a year of my dad submitting material to him, Mark wrote to him and said, who are you? I don't accept other people's material, but you're really funny. I'll pay you $100 a pop. Long story short, which is not my forte. Dan Rowan and Dick Martin were in the audience one night. They asked about his writer. My dad wound up being one of the original writers and creators of Laugh-In. So we moved from Maryland to Hollywood. And my dad was the writer on Laugh-In. It was crazy. He was a salesman in Maryland.
One of the main writers for Laugh-In, or were there several?
The original creators, and became the head writer from the get-go. And so he commuted back and forth to from LA to Maryland for I think the first season or two, because he kept thinking this is not going to last. And then it did. So he packed up our family and moved out. And it wasn't that strange. My grandmother on his side was actually a Ziegfeld Folly girl. I had an aunt who was on Broadway. My uncle Bob played Horatio when Richard Burton did Hamlet on Broadway. And so that was sort of like the background of my life. And my dad was sort of the black sheep of the family.
Right.
For wanting to, be a doctor and a businessman. Then he had to take care of his mom and his brothers and sisters.
So you get it. You get it real honest, real honest.
But honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when did you move out to Hollywood? Essentially, how old were you?
I was 4 when I got there. And my dad and my mom did not want us to live like in the heart of the industry. So I grew up in this really sweet beach community called Palos Verdes, not to be confused with Pacific Palisades, which is where my dad thought he was getting us a house, which was an hour and a half north of Palos Verdes. So literally my dad commuted into LA for, 20 plus years. And it took him an hour and 20 minutes to get to work every day. Longer as the years progressed because more and more traffic, and he would do that, go in and come out.
Yeah. Was he funny growing up? Was he a funny guy?
He was. I have to say, my husband Brent Hinkley, who's also an actor at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, like my husband Brent, the kindest and funniest man, just a mensch, just wanted to take care of us. My mother became sort of this travel bug. She had grown up in Oklahoma. They met in Maryland, got married and had kids young. So we got to Los Angeles and she suddenly thought I could go and see the world, sort of not remembering she had 3 kids. So, but I would come home from school and there'd be a note saying, I've gone to Spain. I'll be back in 3 months. And that's true. And so my dad really would get up and make us breakfast, would make sure we got our homework done and did all that stuff. And he was just the funniest, kindest, most loving. And he was, the sort of template for how a man treats a woman. Kindness and equality and just humor and love.
So mom would literally just I'm off, flit across the world. Wow.
Yeah. And she was kind of amazing because I look at it now, that it was challenging certainly at the time, but she got married young, had kids young, and then suddenly had access to see the world. And at that time, she did it all. She did it by herself. She would just map out a route and she would go explore. And by the time, when I was 9, she took me to, all over Europe. I was in Africa for a little while. And she wound up, my dad had a heart attack and died at 54, very unexpectedly. He was a runner. He was healthy. He didn't smoke. And then my mother moved to Spain. And she's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. She picked up an Icelandic fisherman outside of a bar in Portugal and moved to Iceland for 10 years.
That's taken life by the balls right there, I guess.
Really did.
Wow.
So, she became, she modeled this really independent behavior, which at the time when I was little, I didn't really grasp the need for that, but certainly as I got older was in awe of the fact that she just was incredibly fearless her whole life.
Are you like that?
A little bit. When I have a son who's now 20, which blows my mind. After my dad died, because it was so unexpected and we didn't know what to do, our family was very funny. I have 2 older brothers who are both writers, and one's in real estate. One has he had a travel show that he did on called NBC Great Getaways, and we all sort of really lost our minds after my dad died, because clearly he'd been the anchor for all of us. And so he died so unexpectedly. We had him cremated, and then we didn't know what to do. So we had his ashes in the trunk of our car for about 5 years. We used to call him the ultimate backseat driver because we just didn't know. We didn't have one tool of how to handle crisis. So
Yeah.
we just sort of passed him around and, you know, lost our minds anyway.
How?
But then, no, I got really scared. I got really, really, really
Mhm.
scared. I didn't know how to function. I had this really one person, and I also know that I'm very, very close to my two brothers. But I had this one person who had shown me unconditional love, understanding, always spoke to me with respect and kindness, and we were incredibly bonded. And so when he died, I lost my shit. I
Yeah.
just lost my shit and got super scared. And it really wasn't until I found this theater company in LA called the Actors Gang, and I really credit that for saving me,
Mhm.
for giving me structure back, for showing me an incredible community of support and creativity. And so it felt familiar to me because there was a lot of structure and there was a lot of humor and there was a lot of understanding in these people who were all doing the same thing I was wanting to do.
For sure. How old were you when he passed?
I was 22.
Oh man, Kate, I can't even imagine. You were a baby.
Baby. And also because I was a baby. I mean, emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, I had been a daddy's girl. I was the baby of the family. I was the only girl in the family. So I mean, I could do no wrong. It was fantastic. And then suddenly, so after my dad passed away so unexpectedly, my oldest brother Mike was a deep sea diver in Bangkok, and so he had been coming back and forth, but he wound up staying in Bangkok for quite a long time. And my brother Dave got a one-way ticket to Australia, and my mom went to Portugal and then to Iceland. So I suddenly found myself
Hmm.
completely solo for the first time in my life, and it was, a lot of lessons that I should have learned growing up. My dad had grown up really poor and had just kind of went overboard in spoiling his kids, and so I did not know how to function without those people that I had kind of known all my life, and then
Sure.
all of them were
Well,
gone.
and I can completely understand that Actors Gang because being a little bit of a theater nerd myself, thespians are so weird and it's family. It's very much like a family.
For
And
sure, so dysfunctional,
did you say dysfunctional?
totally dysfunctional.
In the
I mean,
best way.
best way. And we were all sleeping together. It was just everything was about creating theater and music, and we wouldn't sleep for days. And these are still some of my best friends. I mean, I found that I stumbled upon this group when I was in my 20s, and I was waiting tables at a restaurant in LA called La Scala Presto. It's the best chopped salads in Los Angeles. Um, and I wound up there, and that's how I met Dan Parker.
Hmm.
So this is a theater company that Tim Robbins and my husband, actually Brent Hinkley, and a group of people, small group of people, anarchists, rebels, punk rockers, started out of the UCLA theater department because they had produced this really great play on their own and then wanted to take it out into the city, and the school said, no, you can't do that. This is, everything's about school. You can't work professionally and blah, blah, blah. And so they kind of said, okay. And then they, in the middle of the night, broke into the theater department. They stole all the costumes and they took the play out into LA, and they got all these amazing reviews. And that started the Actors Gang, which is
Nice.
still a really powerful. So it's Tim Robbins is still the artistic director, and it's his passion and his purpose in life to create art that changes the world.
That's so amazing. Let's
Yeah.
let's go back just a little bit. What was your dad's name?
Jim Mulligan.
Jim. Oh, Jim. I think I would have liked Jim a lot. I have a feeling.
He was best. He actually also went on. He did a lot. He did all like the um, variety shows, like Smothers Brothers, Rich Little, all these big. Oh, Sonny and Cher. He produced for a long time, and then when Variety died, he started getting into sitcoms. He actually his greatest pride was the fact that he had written and produced MASH, and won a couple awards for that. And because my mom wanted nothing to do with any of this, I always got to be his date. So I would go to the Emmys with him when MASH actually ended. I got to go to the farewell MASH party, and this is so ridiculous. I remember sitting at a table, Bobby Short, famous pianist, from the Carlisle Hotel in New York and then some. I was sitting between Bobby Short and former President Gerald Ford at this giant round table, just drinking wine and chat. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy.
I can't. That's like so far beyond anything that I could possibly wrap my hands around. What kind of?
Me too.
What was his style? Yeah. What was his style of humor? I mean, was it?
It was heartfelt. That's why MASH was such a good fit for him. He wrote and got an award, a humanitarian award, on that show for the episode called "Yes, Sir, That's My Baby," and it was about American GIs who were getting Korean women pregnant, and then either abandoning the kids or wanting to bring them back to the United States and being unable to. And it was a beautiful script. It's funny, in all this coronavirus pandemic right now, we've been sort of, going into the garage and cleaning up. And I found a couple copies of my dad's script the other day and was flipping through it. And that sort of very heartfelt yet humorous slice of life kind of thing.
Right. That's the kind of humor most people really do cling to and we relate to because it's real.
Yeah. Although I do have to say, Mel Brooks, that kind of stuff, is my jam.
Yeah.
When I had my son, the movie that I took to the hospital with me to sort of like breathe with and all that was Young Frankenstein. That was my sort of calming.
Yeah.
This is the one that's gonna, help me through because I just needed to laugh in the agony of it all.
I just watched on Netflix,
Childbirth.
I think it's Bill Burr stand up. Do you know him, Bill Burr?
I don't.
It's super crass and just really hard. He's from Boston, and that kind of humor makes me belly laugh, like just giggle. Because it's nothing, I mean, it's so opposite, I guess, of me, but it's just really crass and funny, and that's my favorite humor.
And it's great to be able to tap into all of that. I sometimes, when I'm feeling just like the anxiety and the sadness of what's going on in the world right now, I turn on The Office. God, that show makes me laugh.
Same.
Even when it jumped off the rails and all that kind of stuff, but The Office, Michael Scott, what an idiot. And I can't, I love him so much.
Totally. When did you realize this was for you, this world of acting? Was it the Actors Gang in LA?
Well, it was sort of always, I was an extrovert, and I always did school plays. I always ran for school office. I was the first female president at Point Vicente Elementary School.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the first female president of the school. What are you in fifth grade, like 10? I don't know. Always bossy.
It does not matter. You were the first. That's it.
I was the first. So I was always interested. I never really thought about doing anything else. And then I did a couple of TV things when I was in middle school and high school. And then there was one point where I could have done a series. It was called Hello, Larry with McLean Stevenson. But my dad said to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to be in school or do you want to go to work? And I wanted to stay in school. I enjoyed not so much classes, but I really liked the social aspect of school. And I thought, oh, I'll miss that too much. But one of the things that was the greatest influence was when I was 12, I went to visit my aunt Jennifer Bassi, who, if anybody is an All My Children fan, she was on All My Children for years, and she played Marion, and she talked like this, and everybody was darling. Everybody was absolutely darling. She famously had an affair with Tad, who is her like daughter's husband or something, all that stuff.
Of course.
But she was on All My Children for years. But I went to stay with her when I was 12 I like to say it was for the summer, because that's what it felt like. I'm sure it was probably 3 weeks, if even that. But I always tell people it was for the summer. And she was understudying California Suite on Broadway. And I would go to work with her. But the beginning of that, I flew in by myself. I was 12. My flight was delayed and then rerouted. So I actually landed in Newark instead of Kennedy and had to take a bus over. By the time I got to Kennedy Airport, I knew she had to already be at the theater. So I was a little nervous about what was going to happen. There were no cell phones or anything.
Right.
I get off the the bus that had bused me from Newark, and there's a woman there to meet me. And she said, "Excuse me, are you Kate Mulligan?" "Oh, I am." She said, "Your aunt asked me to take care of you. She had to go to the theater, do the show." I was like, "Great." So we get my luggage, we go to her car, and I said, "So how do you know my aunt?" She said, "Oh, I just met her in the bar as she was waiting for you, because I was supposed to pick up somebody who didn't make their flight." They had just met in a bar. And I wound up going home with that woman and spending the night with her family, and her family was having a family reunion. And I called my dad from this house in, I don't know where I was, the Bronx, Brooklyn, uptown or downtown. I have no idea. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I don't know."
Oh my gosh.
I'm at a family reunion, but I said, "Everybody sounds like Rhoda," which was a big show at the time, a spinoff of Mary Tyler Moore. And so I spent the night at her house, and she brought me to Jennifer the next day, and they remained friends for decades. So I stayed with her that summer, and I would go to the theater with her every night and sit in her dressing room. And then afterwards, she would dress me up in her clothes, and we would go to Sardi's and all these. I was 12.
Right.
We would go to all these fabulous restaurants for dinner at midnight. And then we'd go to Edie Gourmet's and sing around the piano until, all hours. And I thought, how do you get to do this? And then the next day, she'd get in a cab and she'd take me along to her auditions, and she would sing in the back of the cab, "Oh, kiss today, goodbye." And I was like, "You are my goddess. I want to
Fabulous.
be you." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you feel like you did kind of, are you you're following those footsteps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted these people who would, even like sort of when my dad was still in Maryland working, and my brother, Mike Mulligan, he was doing a lot of theater at a local theater there called Alney Theater, which does great, it's a regional theater that still, I went and visited there about 2 months ago when I was in DC. So my brother Mike was doing plays there, and there were a lot of shows that would sort of start out there, maybe do like an out of town tryout before they would go to New York. And we had this big old 200-year-old house on like 200 acres that eventually, was sold off. And so a lot of these actors, because some of them were my aunts and uncles, would come and stay at our house while they were instead of staying in company housing at Alney Theater, they'd come stay with us. And like Chris Sarandon was there, and so Susan Sarandon was there, who I ironically met again later on because she was with Tim Robbins for so many years. And so I would stay up. I remember, and I was probably like 3-4 years old, and I would sneak out of my room and go down the stairs, probably slide down the banister. And I just went to this house 2 months ago. It was incredible. And I would peek around chairs, and I would listen to these incredibly creative, funny people up all night, telling stories, laughing, sharing. I mean, it was, and I think that was really the seed that was planted in me about that world, that world of just camaraderie and friendship and humor and arguments about politics. So there were always arguments about politics.
Yeah. Well, there's something about, again, I did plays in theater until, just through college, like community type theater stuff, the best, just these like,
The
small
best.
theater houses.
Yeah.
There's no judgment in this group of actors. They love you no matter what. If you sing and
Yeah.
it's off key, they say it's off key, try it again. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just something so loving about these folks that you're essentially putting everything inside of you out on a stage for everyone to see and judge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. And, and so as a result, I was talking about this with my friends the other day about, in a real friendship, how you get to be authentic. You don't have to walk on eggshells around each other. Because sometimes, in your family, you're trying to avoid, that same old argument, or you just want to get along because you don't see each other that often anymore. And you live on opposite sides of the country. And so when you are together, you just sort of let things go and make the best of it. But when you're with your group of real friends, you get to tell each other the truth it's real family. It's your chosen family.
Mm-hmm.
You get to be authentically yourself. You have to own up to your mistakes. You get called out on your shit, and you can. And the beauty is, you learn the ability to apologize and to own up. I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. And not even like it wasn't my intention. It doesn't really matter what your intentions were. You did hurt somebody's feelings. You say, I'm sorry. And you get back to having a good time. But that telling your friends the truth and being able to hear the truth is an incredible thing.
1000%. And the older I get, the more I realize that group gets smaller and smaller as you get older.
For sure.
It tends to shrink on you a little bit. And there's something about bearing your soul, even I'm a shower singer. I love singing. But if you said, "Hey, can you bust a note right?" No way. It's too much. But if you're in front of your people, no one has to ask you. You are singing in front of them.
You're just singing. It's a funny thing because I've sung in shows here at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and at the Actors Gang, and I find singing to be the most terrifying, vulnerable. There's nothing. I have been naked on stage, walking around. I mean, just hello world, which that's a bigger story. What the hell was I thinking?
I'm writing that down right now.
I think I would rather do that. I would rather do that. It is so scary because singing comes from such a place, and you have to be relaxed, or it gets stuck in your throat, or the voice shakes. Right? A few years ago, I auditioned for Beauty and the Beast at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival because they want to, can you sing? And if you did a little ditty, that's one thing, but can you stand and deliver? So I was auditioning for Mrs. Potts, really just to try to get over my fear of singing in front of people. And because I can sing, but I can't sing, I can't.
Yeah.
I wasn't trained to do that. And so I listened to really beautiful Broadway singers and well, that's not how I sound. So I must not be good, but I think I could learn to do that. Anyway, so I auditioned for this show. And then I wound up getting this email saying, we're offering you the part of Mrs. Potts. And I reread it and I showed it to my husband and I said, does that say I'm the understudy? Or does that say I'm Mrs. Potts? And he goes, you're Mrs. Potts. And I was scared I was scared from that moment until we closed the show. I was so scared. And the way that it was staged, I would walk up this flight of stairs and stand at the top of the what they call the inner above on the outdoor stage at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the Elizabethan Theater. And, the Beast and Belle would dance and I had to sing the song, Tale as Old as Time. I mean, it's like the song. And I would walk up that staircase like I was going to a guillotine. I was like, please let lightning come and strike me down. Why the hell have I chosen this? What am I thinking?
Well, I saw Hairspray. I thought you were fabulous. I saw it
Very
twice.
kind.
I couldn't, I mean, it, you were so nasty in that
So
part.
nasty.
Oh, so good though. So
So
good.
nasty. It was fun. And Chris Moore, who directed that play, Christopher Liam Moore, who's one of my closest friends, um, and he is Bill Rausch's husband, who was the artistic director for so many years at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and a director there prior to that. We'd all worked together and been friends in Los Angeles, which is how my husband and I wound up coming to OSF. But Chris Moore directed that show, Hairspray, and he had said to me, if people don't boo you when you're walking down the street, you are not getting in deep enough. I want people to hate you. You're a horrible, racist, hideous human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
It was, yeah, right?
And then it did take the pressure off, right? Because it's not about sound good when you sing this song, right? Because if you're thinking about that, you're screwed because you just won't. And then you're not telling the story,
Right.
right? I mean, that's the great thing about fantastic singers. Frank Sinatra, known for, by the end of his career, not having the best voice, but he could tell a story like nobody's business. My husband says that Elvis Costello is our generation's Frank Sinatra, because that man can sing a song just from his gut, his insides are just splayed out, which is why my son is named Declan, because Elvis Costello's real name is Declan McManus.
I love that.
So when we found out we were pregnant, we were talking about names, and I wanted an Irish name. And Bill Rausch and Chris Moore they were having a child at the same time, and they were naming their first son Liam. And so Liam was taken. And then Brent and I were driving around. He goes, what about Declan? I went, I love that name. Love it. Elvis Costello.
How did you meet your hubby, Brent Hinkley?
I met him at the Actors Gang.
Okay.
And this is a true story. And I was talking to him about this the other day. We're together a lot right now. And we always have been. So he was one of the original creators of the Actors Gang Theater Company. And I was at a workshop where people just gather around, and maybe somebody has an idea of, okay, here, we knew we were going to be doing this particular play. So you say, I'm going to work on this character tonight, and then you just start throwing things on and pretending to block scenes. Or you just, if you don't have a particular play you're working on, then there's sort of a template of you're going to work on stock characters, like from Commedia. But anyway, so this was my first one, and I was super, super nervous. I'd heard about this theater company, and I was up on this stage. It was a sort of a classroom size room at UCLA that they were allowed to use after hours. And this is well after everybody graduated from UCLA, but they still have maintained a really close relationship with them. And this guy walked by sort of in the background. And I literally remember the first time I laid eyes on him. He had a migraine. He was miserable. He was leaving the room to go lie down. But there was something about, I was only even in profile. I had no idea, but I just sparked at him, and I watched him for the next, 5 years. He directed me in some plays. He was in some plays with me. He rarely spoke to me, even when he directed me in plays. I always thought he hated me. And, but he was all about the work. He was so creative and so funny. And after, quite some time, I will say he was married. And then, so he was off limits. So that's why there was never any, I can't let him know. And, so then when he and his wife decided to part ways, I was very happy when he said, after this is all settled, would you like to go on a date with me? And I was like, I've been watching you for 5 or 6 years. I just thought I loved the way he talked to people. I loved the way he treated people as a director. He was so creative when he was on stage. He was so funny, and he was quiet. He's such an introvert.
Really?
Well, look at me. And my son really has a combo of the both of us. But so Brent and I started dating in the latter part of 1993, and we
Was he crushing on you too this whole time?
well, he was married, so no. Um, but I mean, I think that once the sort of that um, once the constraints were off,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he just started looking at me in a different way. Or yes, I don't know. I mean, maybe in private I'll tell you.
When we hang up.
But when we hang up. But yeah, and so yeah, that was 1993 that we started dating. We got married in 2000. And so we've been together since 1993.
Wow, you guys waited quite a few years before you tied the knot.
Yeah, because he had been married. I mean, it's such a long story because then he dumped me and it was horrible and I was brokenhearted and I couldn't get out of bed for 6 months. And I was like, what? I thought this was forever. And he's like, I was married. I need to, and he was right. If we had stayed together after the sort of, drama, because there was drama around us getting together, it was a lot. But I was like, this is so brave. This is for love. This is forever. And then he dumped my ass, and I was like, what the actual? Are you insane? What?
You don't dump me.
I was just like, I don't get. Was forever. And then but he was right. He needed to be a single guy. He'd got married at like 21. And so I don't, I credit him because I don't think we'd be together now if he had not done that.
Such a similar story here. My husband was previously married young, and we were together for a very long time before we got married. Mostly, I think, for both of us to make sure, because I was not going to be this girl who I'm not going to get married and then get divorced because it's just too hard. Like, I just didn't.
And you don't want to be the transition girl either.
No way.
Or one of 20 transition girls. Thank you very much.
So I feel you. I feel you there. I feel like we have, this is a conversation you and I will have over some wine.
Over wine.
Later day. Later day.
I can't.
So you guys get married in the year 2000. You're working this whole time though. You're together, you're working. Yeah. You're both doing acting, doing what you love.
Yeah.
Where are you during all this? LA?
So we're living in LA. And then by this time, Declan was born, and so we moved out of Hollywood. We lived right off of Melrose. It was really fun, and we were down the street from the Actors Gang. I literally could walk to the theater, and it was great. Although I wouldn't recommend it at night. And then we moved to the Valley when Declan was little. And just, Brent, if you look at his resume, he's been in every TV show. He just worked all the time. And I did every commercial known to man. I have sold every product on TV you can possibly imagine. But it was an interesting thing. I loved being on television. It was fun, but it was something I didn't feel like I was very good at. I felt self-conscious when I would go into audition rooms because I just didn't have the confidence. Like I just would get nervous about, well, what do they want? And I'm going to a theater audition. I never had that nerve. I'd be like, I know exactly what's expected of me here. And I'm interested to take the confidence I have in myself now out back into that realm, that medium, which is what I was in the midst of doing this year. But so we were at the Actors Gang. It was going swimmingly. By this time, the Actors Gang had moved to Culver City, to a place called the Ivy. The Ivy, is it the substation? It's an old train station. It's gorgeous. It's still there. It's in Culver City. And I get a call from Bill Rausch one night saying, I've just been made the artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and I would love to offer you a contract. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He says, well, it's 10 months. I was like, oh my God. Because in the theater in LA, there's no such thing. You would run a show for 6 weeks. If it did well, you could run, but it was like on the weekends. It was, it wasn't that. And I had done shows at South Coast Rep. I had done shows at the Mark Taper, but it's a 2 or 3 month gig. So this was like, wow, a really steady job of doing a play for that long sounds incredible. But also, who the hell moves to Oregon to be an actor? No, that's so stupid. Why would we do that? No. Are you crazy? And so, then he goes, well, why don't you just come over and we'll chat about it? And so I went over. He was at his friend's house, Amy Brenneman, who lived down the street, down the street, but in a much nicer house than I did. Hi, Amy. And so then he had a meeting with Brent, and because he also was directing Brent in plays. So he offered us both a contract, and we were like, okay, we'll try it for a year. And we were in a rental house in the valley, and we packed up all of our stuff into one of those pod things and moved it up because, we didn't have a permanent address. We're like, we'll bring it up, we'll put it in storage, and we'll move back down to LA in a year when this contract is up. Cut to 12 years later. Last year was my 12th season. And then this year was Brent's 13th season because I opted to not come back to OSF this year because I wanted that. I felt like there was something tapping on my shoulder. Since I was 12 and stayed with my aunt in New York, I've wanted that experience. But, I have, a lot of self-esteem issues and nerves about it. And I had a child. And so being able to have this steady job here and raise my son in beautiful Ashland, Oregon, and he's, creative and he's outlandish and, he was accepted and encouraged, and it was a really great community for him.
Yeah.
And he could have his own world and soccer and do all that stuff while I worked right down the street. And then he went off to college, and I was like, I think it's time for me to go. I think it's time for me to go to New York.
Oh man.
And
that's ballsy.
It was crazy. I mean, it was great. And so I felt I felt like I was 17 and embarking, but at 17 with like experience and confidence and a voice and something to say and people to support and uplift. And I couldn't wait. I get chills thinking about it. And everything in me was like, yes, this is, trust your instincts. This is right. This is it. So I said, I'm not going to come back. I shipped 7 boxes and 2 suitcases back east. Then Bill Rausch said, do you want to do a production of Mother Road at Arena Stage? I was like, yeah, because that will get me east on a job. This is amazing. So I had just closed Mother Road. I guess that was like late February. And then all my boxes and all my suitcases were in New York, and I stayed with Bill Rausch and Chris Moore at their place, so kindly opened their doors to me for a week. And then I moved in to sort of house sit at this apartment in Chelsea, and I was there for 2 days and came home because then the COVID, it was like, it's sheltering in place, get out now or you're not leaving. And I came home.
Kate, that hits me in the gut. That really and so I can't even imagine for you right now.
It was, I felt lucky that we were nervous. Like, do we fly? Is it irresponsible for me to fly? And but at the end of the day, by this time Declan was home from school, so it was just Brent and Declan were here, and I thought I can't. For me, I knew the right choice was I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to go home. Mm-hmm. And this was before, if I flew home and nobody was wearing a mask on the plane was really empty. The airport, Kennedy, was really empty, which was so bizarre. And then I flew home, and then I sort of quarantined myself in my house, and we wore masks and gloves for 2 weeks because I had traveled. And I called my local doctor here and asked if I could be tested. And at that point, this was the very, very end of March. I couldn't get any tests. But she said, if you experience this, that, and the other, we'll see what we can do. And then, couldn't and didn't. And then after about 2.5 weeks, we all sort of started easing up with each other.
Right.
And they've been home ever since.
Are you planning on still chasing that dream?
I am. As soon as I'm allowed to, I'll go back. And part of the fear was, from my husband and Dan Parker, my dear friend and supporter, and Christopher Liam Moore and Bill Rausch were like, you're not allowed to go back to Ashland and stay. You can't give up because this has been a roadblock. And so the challenge has been, if I'm meant to trust my instincts, what just happened? Because everything in me told me that was the right thing to do. And so I'm taking this time right now, because after like the excitement of being back with my boys sort of settled down, because I was really homesick, I really missed them. After that settled down, I got sad, I got depressed. Mm-hmm. It was also the first time in probably 16 years, I didn't have something to work on. So all that energy that I'm usually focused on, my anxiety, that's how I handle my anxiety as I work, and I channel into something, and then suddenly you're just left with yourself, and little demons that you thought you had slayed 20 years ago go, no, you didn't really deal with me. You got busy and you got distracted. But your issues are all still down here just waiting to come up and slap you in the face.
Have you been dealing with those?
Yeah, for sure. And, for me, as a woman sort of, growing up in Los Angeles in the 80s and the 90s and in the early 2000s, I have a lot of body issues, a lot of what is a woman supposed to look like. Girls I went to high school with were, swimsuit models and went on to become Playboy models and they were some of the most unbelievable. I still look at them, and I was looking at an old yearbook the other day, and girls who were 17, I remember at the time going, you look 27. And I still look at them and go, geez, you really did look 20. You really were. So there was so much comparison when I was growing up. And, develop into eating disorders and body issues and all that kind of stuff. And really hadn't thought about it, thought like that was not anything I had to deal with anymore.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm in my house and I don't have any distraction, and all those things came back up. So the beauty is now, I'll tell you a story, like I haven't been doing that for the last, anyway. But it was my husband's birthday, and so since we can't do much, I thought, well, I'm going to make his favorite breakfast. I don't cook. I'm going to make his favorite lunch. I don't cook. I'm going to make his favorite dinner. I don't cook. So it was stressful, and but I was really into it. And I had margaritas going, and it was really fun. And then the next day, there were all these leftovers, and I basically just stood in the kitchen with a fork and ate anything I could find. And then my boys are outside playing croquet. We have an acre of land in the backyard, and since we don't know what to do with it, we just put up a croquet thing. Said, I'm going to make you guys some sandwiches and some potato chips. So we had a leftover full family-sized bag of potato chips left over from Brent's birthday the day before, which we never used. So I came out with the sandwiches. It's such a silly story. Came out. And I said to them, I was going to put potato chips, but I dropped them on the floor, so I had to throw them all away. And they're like, okay, no deal. And then I stopped and I went, that was a lie. I ate the whole bag. And they're like, that's fine. I was like, no, you don't understand. I ate a family-sized bag of potato chips, and I hid in my bathroom while I was eating them. So here's the point. It was shameful. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want it. So I'm asking you, and this might be a horrible comparison, but I said to my boys, I need you to look at my food issues like a heroin addict. Mm-hmm. So it's not a cute, funny, oh, you ate a bag of potato chips. It's self-harm. It's shameful. It's so embarrassing. And part of it is the secrecy. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to own it. I'm asking you for help. And then it really helped me to
Yeah.
just not be secretive about it and full of shame about it, because I couldn't believe it was happening after all these years, that binge eating where you just
Yeah.
are like crying while you're finishing a foot-long sub.
That's so many girls, especially
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, every
All
single
the time.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time, every single day.
Do you,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, do you feel like all of these issues that you've been dealing with because of this pandemic, because you're really having to
Yeah.
like look at yourself in a mirror, do
Yeah.
you feel like now chasing that dream, going back east and doing what you really want to do, dealing with all of this is going to make, because you could say
Yeah.
if you moved and you're still dealing with all of these issues, there could have been a world of trouble.
Trish, that is it, 1000%. Because I really am trying to figure out, look, this pandemic is not about me, but on an individual basis, what can I learn from it? What am I meant to glean from this?
Yeah.
And for me, it is, you still had a lot of work to do before you had the confidence you thought you had to go in and really be authentic in a room where you're not looking for approval. You're seeking a job, but you're not seeking approval. I don't need a pat on the head to tell me I'm a good little girl, or that I'm pretty, or that I'm all that bullshit. I just need to be the best person for the job. And you might not agree with it, but if I walk out of that room going, but I think so, and that was my interpretation of what I would do with this part, and if it's not what you want, that is none of my business. So I think you're exactly right. It's given me this opportunity to really have to, with no distraction, deal with myself in an incredibly authentic way, that I can then carry that woman. I was talking to my friend Tracy Young about this, who is an old friend who directed some shows at OSF, but I met her at the Actors Gang. And I was saying, because she sent me all these wonderful books about dealing with grief and dealing with trauma, because I called her and was like, I don't know what the hell is happening to me, because there are much bigger problems in the world. And I said to her, I think for me, it's like, it's not my little girl that I need to get in touch with. It's not that girl that needs a voice. It's the woman in me that needs a voice. It's the grown-up saying, please let me out. Please deal with these child issues that you've had from feeling, your father's death and your family was gone and you were lost alone in LA and all that kind of stuff. That was all still there.
Yeah.
And so that's what, I work on it every single day. I get up in the morning, I went out and I have bought and returned this book or donated it so many times, called The Artist's Way. Maybe you've heard of it. And it's about getting up and really trying to get in touch with your creativity. It's a beautiful book. I have a copy of it around, but I can't think of the artist's name. Cameron, I think is her last name. But it's called The Artist's Way.
Okay.
And it's all about, you get up in the morning and you write. There's this thing called the morning pages. Everybody who's going to be listening to this, who's is older than 45, is going, oh my God, I've done that so many times.
Julia
it's
Cameron?
An incredible tool. Pardon?
Julia Cameron?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, helpful book.
Okay.
And it gives you tasks to get your own inner demons out of the way. All the negative things you say to yourself, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not creative enough, this is derivative, it's been done before, you don't have anything interesting to say, nobody would want to hear what you have to say. And you get all that out to get to the truth of, what do you want to create? Because I want to create. I want to be a part of that community. And I think I have something to say. And it's an interesting time right now with George Floyd and with what's happening. As a middle-aged white woman, the platform is not mine right now, nor should it be. I want to listen. I want to be of service. I want to be an advocate and an ally. Doesn't mean I can't sit at home and clear out my shit so I can be a better, more confident person to help that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things that have been going on the last few days have put so much into perspective for me. and
Yeah.
things that were important a few days ago are just no longer important.
Yeah.
So you do find
Yeah.
that. Do you think auditioning and getting accepted for auditions or getting the role or getting denied the role plays any part in that demon side for actors?
I mean, yeah, and that's why you have to do that work, that you have to be so full of self-love that it rolls off your back. Because you're not going to get every job you
Right.
audition for. It's not humanly possible. And so rejection is a huge part of it. What helped me a lot in LA was I would go to commercial auditions, and I would go to sometimes 4 a day. And you book, maybe if you get 2 a year, you're like, dude, I'm rolling in success. Um, so you really get accustomed to that. But that's a different thing. You're in a room for 10 seconds. But when you're auditioning for a play that you have like really delved into, and you've done your homework, and you've figured out the whys and the wheres and the who this person is, and you bring that into a room and you vomit it up for people to judge and decide upon what their opinion is. And this is an old 12-step thing. Your opinion of me is not my business. It's none of my business. And so that's when you have a side hustle. My husband and I both work for Blackstone Audio, and we record audiobooks. You and I talked about this before, because you'd be great at it, Trish. And it's great. You get to go in a room and put on a set of headphones and sit and read into a microphone and tell stories. Just tell stories. And so I don't have, the fear comes from when you go into these theater and TV auditions. What if I never get, not only what if I don't get the job, but what if I don't get another audition? Because you don't even have control of that.
Right.
So control is a big thing, right? And that's where food issues come in, because it's controlling something
what you can
in your
control.
life.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Where do you find for these roles, especially for theater, like what is your homework? Like what does it take when you go into an audition? And I don't know if you want to give me an example of a role you tried out for and got, but where do you, as an actor, where do you find that? Where does it come from? Where's the homework?
Well, so the homework always is read the play over and over and over again. And then, because you're not, it's not, when you go into an audition, it shouldn't be the finished version of that character, right? You are there to be in a community of actors who get to build that play together. But this is your time to go in with confidence and choices and be that person for that time. Tim Robbins used to say, when I go into he would say, when I go into an audition, I'm not there to seek approval. As I walk in, like I already have the job. So I walk in, and it's not arrogance, it's confidence. I'm not being grateful for being in the room. I'm not just there being small, tell me what to do. I come in with, I am the fully embodied version of this woman. And so I read the play over and over and over again. I read about what other characters say about her, and maybe that'll give me a little bit of information. I look at the sides, which are the pages they give you of the scene maybe you're auditioning with, and you make choices. I've got this line. Let's say the line is, I'm going to move the chair from the corner into the center of the room. A nothing of a line, but why is she doing it? What is the reason behind it? Make a choice about how she feels about moving that chair. Is she pissed off about it? I don't want to move that chair. I'm going to move that chair. Or is it, I think it'd be beautiful. It was, I just discovered that I'm going to move that chair over here, right? So you make it your own. You make these choices, and you back it up with the truth of the play or the script. Why does she feel that way about it? Where's the truth behind that? And so that's what they mean when they say make a choice. And that's what casting directors and directors want to see. Make some choices. Give me something to play with. My sandbox is my body, my voice, these words, and I'm just going to play. Right. And it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. This is coming from me, from an authentic place of my imagination, my heart. And then the director will say, okay, that's great. Let's make an adjustment. Don't be so pissed off about the chair having to move. maybe she's really sad about it. Maybe it's been in that corner because that's where her dad sat for all those years. And now somebody says, I don't like it there anymore. And so let's try that. And it's not necessarily because that's the right thing. It's just they want to see, can you take direction?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
are you so solidly into, no, this is the only way it can be done? Take direction. And
So,
also because I don't know what my scene partner is going to be doing, right? Is he attacking me with that? So I've got to come back with an authentic response. So I can't decide at home what this scene is going to look like because it's not a monologue. There's another person here playing with me.
I had a director tell me once, acting is not acting, it's reacting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
When
sure.
you took on the role of Velma, for instance, because she is
Yeah.
completely opposite of you. You are this beautifully kind human being, and she's nasty, of like the nastiest of the nasty.
Yeah.
What did
Yeah.
you? What was the homework there? Like, did you challenge or not challenge?
Could you hear that? I just belched. I hope you couldn't hear that.
No, I didn't. That's fantastic, though. This is real.
Yeah. So what was the challenge? To not shy away from it. Look, I was meant to, she's in that play. I meant to be there and bring the truth. I mean, it's just rampant all over our country right now.
Yeah.
About a horribly racist woman.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to shy away from that, it doesn't give my scene partners anywhere to go. You have to be. So look, we all have ugliness inside of us. We all have anger, fear. We can all be cruel human beings. And, I have been cruel in my life. I've been heartless in my life. I've been selfish in my life. So that's all in me as a human being. And I just can't apologize because it does no service to the truth of racism.
Right.
So if you're going to play a racist, you better play that part and give people a reason to hate you.
Yeah. Well, you
can't be
amazing.
A kind racist.
No, you were amazing in that role. When were you naked on stage?
Thank you so much for asking. It was a wonderful play at the Actors Gang. It was called Mein Kampf. It was based on a play, not the book, but it was a play. And it was sort of like the making of Hitler. So Hitler was a painter before he became a murderer. And so the story was, if I remember correctly, young Hitler sort of like goes to art school and gets denied, and is a horrible satire. At one point, as a young Hitler, he goes in to get a haircut. You can imagine the haircut he comes up with, right? He becomes Hitler. So I was supposed to play this sort of little girl who would wash the feet of this older Jewish man, and I was there to be of sort of service to him, not in a sexual way, but of subservient to him. So at one point, this young girl, because she's just supposed to be a little girl, takes off all of her clothes to wash his feet. And so, it's written as a little girl, but it's supposed to be played by a woman.
Right.
And so I did that. And I still can't, because like we've discussed my body issues, we've discussed my food issues. I mean, it was not necessarily, I still don't know why I did. I can't imagine what made me do that. And so, but there was one night where and it was like, we did it. It was professional. It was, just sort of brushed over. And I was like, whatever, you're an actor, you take off your clothes and nobody cares. And this is what my body looks like. And it was all a lie. But there was one night where I was washing his feet, the feet of this actor, and the water splashed up on me. And I swear to you, it woke me up, and I looked down and I saw myself naked in front of an audience. And I went, what have I done? Yeah. What was I thinking? It was, and it wasn't just like I could sit and suck it all in. I had to get up and walk around and fill the bucket. I was like, what the actual hell? And one night after the show, a friend said to me, have your parents come to see this? And I said, well, my mom lives in Iceland and my dad's dead. So I think that's part of it. Like, oh, well, but my brother didn't see it, but he told a bunch of his old high school friends about it, and a group of them came to see it. These old high school kids who I hadn't seen since I was, really young.
Oh,
Oh,
they're like, dude, Kate's naked on
like,
stage.
oh, that's Kate Mulligan naked. Because in high school, no one saw me without like a sweater and wool pants. I was I was a cheerleader, never in a short little skirt.
Wait, you were a cheerleader? Shocking.
Yes, I know. Isn't it shocking? Where that energy? Yeah.
So I'm curious as what Brent says about you going back east to follow this dream.
Right. He's such, we had to talk about it because I said, of course, I'm not going to do this without his partnership in it. Mm-hmm. It can't be done without his partnership. We have a child, we have a mortgage, we have bills, we have college tuition.
Totally.
But I remember when we were even in LA, it was before I had my equity card. And he said to me, I will pay for your equity card, which was like, $1,500 maybe at the time. I don't even remember. It was a lot of money that I didn't have. And he was working a lot more than I was in TV and film.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. What's an equity card?
Yeah. Oh, an equity card. So thank you for asking. So Actors Equity is the professional actors union. And you can't be in a union play and get union wages without your equity card.
Gotcha.
And for TV, it's Screen Actors Guild for TV and film. Mm-hmm. So there's a SAG card, Screen Actors Guild, or equity. Thank you for the question.
Yes.
So he said to me, I will pay for you to do that if you tell me you'll audition for some musicals, because I would, sing around the house. And I was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to go audition for those musicals. So he's always been a pusher of mine, right? He's always been, you put yourself in the forefront. Don't be hesitant. So he's always been a champion of mine. He's been my cheerleader. And, he's known that this has been my dream. I've always wanted to do this. I did a short run, 4 or 5 month run at the Public Theater in New York with an Actors Gang show in 2004. I loved it so much. But I've never been there and done the thing. So he was like, no, I'm in. I'll take a full season contract here at OSF so that one of us has a steady paycheck. And I lined this up for about 1.5 years. I made sure that I had work through Blackstone Audio because they have offices in New York also. So I sort of laid this groundwork and, set it in motion. But it can't be done without his support.
Right.
And it was so funny because when we were, maybe it was about 3 weeks ago, the plan was that I would come back for a visit in June to see the shows. Declan would be home from school. So in being here with him recently, we just looked at each other and said, we never would have lasted without seeing each other until June. We wouldn't have been able to do it. There's no way. So it'll be a lot of figuring it out as we go, mm-hmm. because with his 10-month contract, you don't miss shows. It's not like he could come and visit me. And we didn't know what our finances would be, so it's not like I can just get on a plane and come home.
Right.
So we'll work it out as we go. And he has said so beautifully, if it turns out that you love New York, we'll make it work, and I'll come and we'll partner there. He is a great actor. He's a great director, and I'll go into auditions. And a lot of people know who he is. And they'll literally be like, oh, yeah, that was great. What's happening with Brent? Is Brent going to spread his wings? Does Brent maybe want to come to New York? I'm like, it's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely pulling for both of you in this dream. Although, don't move to New York. Stay here.
Well, we have a house here that, the aforementioned acre with the croquet. We have a creek in our backyard. So we're really lucky here that we can get outside of the house and still be home.
Yeah.
I have a hammock between 2 trees right near the water, and it's in my backyard. It's crazy. We're from LA. I mean, what the hell? So yeah, I mean, OSF will always be an artistic home for me. Like the Actors Gang is still an artistic home for me. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I was born at the Actors Gang, but I grew up here. The opportunities that I was given here, Streetcar Named Desire, I got to be Blanche Dubois. I got to sing in front of all those people on the outdoor stage. I got to tell beautiful stories. I am so incredibly grateful to the life that I have here. And so I don't want that to end. I mean, I love it here.
Yeah.
And my son came home from college with such a new appreciation for, God, I love this place so much. So this is home.
Yeah.
This is home. That's a dream of work. But my heart is in Ashland.
Well, I'm pulling for you for sure, for both of you.
Hey.
And I kind of want to wrap up, but I still have a few questions for you. What is your favorite part, especially about a play? What is your favorite part about it? The rehearsals.
Rehearsal.
Why?
Because there's no expectation of a result. You get to, I mean, talk about playing. You get to bring out every aspect. You get to react to everything going on where nothing has been set yet. Nothing is set in stone. So there's no pressure to achieve that, climactic finish. Because once you decide on that, that's your job, to find a way to authentically recreate spontaneity, that instinctual thing that got you to a moment that the director says, yes, that's it, that's her truth. And then you have to do that 120 times on stage, and 1,000% every time you do it.
Yeah.
So suddenly there's that pressure of, you have to get there. You have to get there. But in rehearsal, oh my gosh, there's joy and there is frustration because you can't get it. I can't find it. What is it? Where is she? Where is she? And then that moment comes where you find it. It's so much fun. And there's just laughter and community and discussion. And I just love it. I love it so much. Brent would say if he could just rehearse forever and never open a play, he'd be super happy.
That's amazing. Do you have a favorite production you've done? Is there a fave?
It sounds easy, but it really is all of them. I got to be in, we did 2 Marx Brothers shows there, Animal Crackers and Coconuts. And I got to be in these just hellishly creative, funny, I would break on stage. Mark Bedard played Groucho, and did the adaptation for Coconuts. Brent played Harpo. John Tufts played Chico. Kate Vogt was the sort of their comic foil. I've never laughed so hard in my life. And sometimes I did it on stage in front of, 600 people because Mark Bedard would purposely try to break me. And he did. I've never been so unprofessional. Certainly playing Blanche Dubois, it was the most challenging thing I've ever done. It's still, I look at it and go, God, I wish I could do that one again. Because there's so much to have uncovered for her. And it was terrifying. I was terrified every time I did it.
Well, she is such a complex woman. I mean, I can't even imagine how you began to play that.
Yeah. And people had a preconceived notion about who she was going to be. I was at the Y on a treadmill one time, and a gentleman I didn't know said to me, "Hey, you're Kate, right? You're gonna do Streetcar." And I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "Well, I'm not going to see it." Okay, how come? Well, I saw the movie. Okay. The play is very different from the movie, but give it a shot. So people, if people have something to compare it to, you're already kind of screwed. Yeah. But then, you still do it. And I loved doing Hairspray. I was really proud of that show.
Hairspray, I'm a bad Southern Oregonian because I really got into OSF late being here. People were like, "You've lived there how long and you've never seen a production? How dare you?" But Hairspray, I can't imagine the amount of work and the rehearsals with the choreography, the music.
Jackie Miller was our choreographer, and she is hands down the best choreographer, movement director. There is nothing that woman can't do, particularly with non-dancers. She so respectfully watches the way your body moves, sees what your strengths are, and will build around what you can do. We did a production of Twelfth Night a few years ago, and again, a lot of these are Christopher Lee Moore directed plays. And it ended with a big tap number, and I can't tell you how many of the actors went up to her and said, "My character would never be in that tap dance," and she would say, "But he is." So you also are going to be super challenged, and you're going to learn how to tap dance.
Yeah.
And we all did. It was crazy.
What does Brent say about the whole, with OSF being essentially canceled this year because of the pandemic?
Yeah.
How is he handling all of that?
He gives himself a lot of projects around the house.
Good man.
It's and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. I wasn't a part of a build of any shows, but you build these shows and you're there every day and you are bleeding and you're crying and you're frustrated and you're full of joy, and you get to that place where you finally get to share it and you're so proud of it. And I don't know if people are going to love it or hate it, but they always say that one of the biggest aspects of the play is the audience. That response, that voice comes into play in the production. And then you get to do that, and they got to do it, 3 previews and maybe 2 performances. So it was, what do they call that? Coitus interruptus. I think it was a little bit of that.
It was a gut punch.
Wait, I didn't quite finish.
It was a gut punch for sure. Your description's a little better, but.
And then the financial aspect for the whole community.
Yeah.
That how are restaurants going to maintain? How there was a thing about, we got to figure out if OSF, this is when it was still possibly going to open up in September, and the COVID was rampant, but this county has done such a beautiful job of being respectful about social distancing and all that kind of stuff. But that if audiences are able to come, they got to be able to eat somewhere. They got to be able to shop somewhere. How do we maintain the local businesses when OSF is not bringing in tourists?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It will be interesting to see what happens in the future. But again, and
something will happen. Nataki is a strong, positive voice and force for this community, and something will happen that will be, it might come back. I mean, they might do, who knows? We're going to do 2 productions and they're both going to be in the outdoor stage, and everybody will sit 4 seats away. Great. People will come back. People want it. They want the beauty of the community, of sitting in an audience and watching a play and having that shared experience. Even if it's not the same experience, it's a shared experience. There's nothing like sitting in the audience of that Elizabethan theater as the sun goes down. It's breathtaking, and it's powerful because theater's been happening in that space since 1935. And even prior to that, when it was part of the Chautauqua circuit, and that was in the late 1800s. That space where the Elizabethan theater is, that's where they performed theater in the late 1800s as part of the Chautauqua circuit. So something will come back in some way.
Yeah, that gave me chills. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up a little bit. I just realized I forgot to prep you on my final 3 questions, I think.
Oh, okay.
So
I wonder what they are.
You can handle it, though. I know you can handle this. First of the final 3, best advice you've ever been given. And we can come back to it if you would like.
I mean, the first thing that came into my head, and I don't know who said it to me, but was to trust yourself. Other people are going to have a lot of opinions about what you do and how you do it. And at the end of the day, you're lying in bed in your own head, and you have to feel okay with yourself. Trust yourself.
100%. This one, very, very timely for you-ish. If you ever left this place, Southern Oregon, what would you miss the most? What would bring you back here?
Lord, the community, everything about it. The actors and the the friendships that I have formed through the Oregon Shakespeare Festival are friends that I will have for the rest of my life. I'm a godmother because of it. These aren't just, they have a thing called a showmance. You do shows with people and then it's over and you're so bonded and then you lose touch.
Yeah.
But there are friends here that I will have forever. And on the other side of that, the community that my son Declan built through soccer. I would have people I had never met before say, "Hey, I see you have a matinee today. Do you need me to pick up Declan and get him to the game?" And it was, I love it. I love it here so much. I love it here so much. My son grew up here, and so community theater and the community as a whole.
Beautiful. Okay, final meal, final drink. What would that look like?
The drink would have tequila in it.
I love that you started with the drink. Oh, you are a woman after my own heart, especially that you just picked tequila.
The drink would have tequila in it. And this is so lame, but really my greatest love is almond butter. It's so full of fat. If you leave me alone with a jar and a spoon, I will finish that sucker.
Almond butter and tequila.
That's me in a nutshell. You just met me in a little nutshell. Here you go.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we could keep going. I really do. But we'll continue the salty conversations for tequila.
Yes.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You just bared yourself, and it was the most beautiful thing. So thank you, Kate Mulligan.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for being interested in anything I have to say. It's very kind of you, and I'm grateful to have seen you today, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Well, keep me posted on NYC. Very curious about that. And I have decided if I die, I want to come back as Kate Mulligan. Just saying.
Well, there's room. There's room for all of us.
All the personalities. I want to go stay with your aunt for a summer. Man.
Well, she's there. She's in Florida right now from, hiding from the COVID and doing her thing. But they had an All My Children Zoom reunion that I just saw a photo of, and she was a part of it. Her name is Jennifer Bassi, and she is so kick-ass.
I can't
Google her when you're done. She's so kick-ass.
I will. I'm going to. I'm absolutely going to. If you are listening to this podcast on Apple's podcast app and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. We're also on Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. You can watch this podcast at ktvl.com, and you can also find me on YouTube. One more time, brilliant and beautiful Kate Mulligan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish. Text me and we'll meet up at the winery sometime.
We're doing it. We are absolutely doing it. Bye, friends. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.